Hey Flosstube friends, my name is Lynn and this is my channel Those Missing Stitches, where I talk all about cross stitch and a little bit about reading. Today is Friday, April 11th, and this is my Flosstube number 28. Hello and welcome and thank you for joining me. April actually marks the 2-year anniversary of when I started my Flosstube here on YouTube, so thank you for joining me along for this fabulous ride. What a 2 years it's been. I will have some giveaways at the end of the video to celebrate my Flosstubiversary if you want to stick around and enter for some of those giveaways I'll show you at the end, in between when I do all my cross stitch stuff and before I talk about the reading. I'm definitely filming this a little later than I normally would. I like to film around the first of the month, but it's just been a crazy, crazy schedule for the last month and a half or so. I've been working. This is I have a day job, a full-time day job. I work for a library at a local university doing finance. So it's budget season and it's closing season coming up. I've been working some extra long hours at work. And my son also made the swim team. So I think as any sports family knows, that just wreaks havoc on your schedule. And we've been trying to kind of adjust to that. It's the first time he's been in sports in a couple of years. So really enjoying having him on that team and enjoying the camaraderie of swim and how much he's enjoying it, but it does definitely change things up at home and how we're having to accommodate for that, for sure. So for today, I have still been able to do some stitching, just not quite as much as I normally would because of the crazy schedule. I'm going to start with, I do have some updates to my shop because it is a new quarter. I have 4 new colors, so I'll show you those really quick. I have some Flosstube shout outs. I usually like to talk about people I've been watching lately. I will go through all my WIPs that I worked on in March, and I have a mini haul for the things that I purchased at market, and then I'll have some giveaways, and at the very, very end, I'll talk about books. So let's get to it. First, I want to show you my new fabric colors. First, this one is called Loyal Liesel. It's kind of a cloudy blue, white and blue, very stormy night, or with a little more blue than gray, but it's a grayish blue. It's looking a little more harsh on the camera than it actually is. It's a little more faded than that, but typical that you can't really see fabric colors very well on camera. Next is called Courageous Cassie. This one is like, it's interesting because it's almost like a taupey green base, and then there's a greenish blue over it, but because it's so like the colors are so green, it makes the greens pop out more than the blues. So to me it looks green, but then when I dye some Ada, it looks a little more blue on the modeling. Again, can't really get it good on camera. It's so hard to tell. It doesn't even look green to me on camera, but it's definitely green in person. Like a light, I don't know. The DMCs are in my shop for what the DMC comparison would be if you're interested in looking at what colors I compare these to. Next is Doting Dora. I originally thought I was going to call this Delightful Dora, and I really don't think Dora from David Copperfield is very delightful, so I didn't think that adjective fit for her, so I changed it to Doting Dora. This is a very soft pink, little darker pink modeling, but still very subtle, still very soft. And I will have a finished piece to show you on this color later. And then last but not least, this one's called Cunning Crawford, another Jane Austen reference from Mansfield Park. This one is like brown and blue and gray. It is absolutely gorgeous. Definitely some dark grays and blues pop out every once in a while. Got a lot of orders for this in the last week. Very pretty. Okay, so that's out of the way. Next, I want to talk about my Flosstube shout outs and who I've been watching lately. I watched, just this last week, I watched The Recovering Book Hoarder, and her recent video, she showed a lot of Alice in Wonderland. And I've wanted to start the Owl Forest Embroidery Alice in Wonderland sale for years, and I have a plan to start it this year on my birthday. But she has started that and has several other Alice in Wonderland pieces, which I'm a sucker for. So I enjoyed watching her most recent video where she goes through all those Alice pieces. I also, and I'll link her down below if you're interested in checking her out. I also was watching Slow and Stitches, and we have very, very similar tastes. She's working on Lola Crow. She's got some autumn lace stitchery. She's got modern folk embroidery. She's doing some Lena Ova. A lot of the same things, maybe even some different patterns, but by a lot of the same creators that I'm doing patterns from. So it's really cool to watch her and watch her progress on that too. So if you're interested in what I stitch, check her out. She stitches a lot of the same stuff. Okay, so let's get into what I worked on in March. I did work on, and I start with stats as always. I worked on 10 projects for a total of 20,959 stitches. I had 2 new starts and 2 finishes. One of my new starts was actually a finish, so it was a start and finish, or a SAF. So first I'm going to show you my finish because I've shown this to you before. This one is Sweetheart Chart by Hello from Liz Matthews. It was a Patreon exclusive that she had out in February. It's not available on her Patreon anymore, but I know she'll release it in her shop sometime in the next year or so. I did stitch this one on 20 count Doting Dora, which is the color I just released in my shop. I actually created this color just because of what I had in mind for what I wanted to do for this pattern. And I use Color and Cotton Dragon Fruit Floss 2/1 full cross. And here's my finish. I really enjoyed this one. This was fun. I think I said in my last video, Three Little Birds, the song by Bob Marley, has a very special meaning for me. So it was really nice to stitch the 3 birds, stitch it in this heart. These beautiful pinks. Pinks are definitely not my signature color, if you can tell by all the blue behind me. But I enjoy, changing it up. This was fun. So that is Sweetheart Chart. Next is my start and finish. This one is called Quite Like Reading, and it's by Abby Sue Designs. Abby Sue loves her fractional stitches. There was a whole lot of fractional stitches, so I was hesitant to start this at first, but I'm glad I did. It came out gorgeous. I originally started it on 20 count, and the fractional stitches were just too difficult to do in the middle of 20 count Ada weave. So I switched it up and restarted it on 16 count Humorous Hyacinth. It's a color that's from my shop, and I used all the called for DMC. And here is my finish. And this is another ode to Jane Austen. Again, this is the 250th birthday, or what would be the 250th birthday for Jane Austen. So there's a Stitch Jane 2025 hashtag out there, a lot of Jane Austen stitching going on. And this is another one. So this fabric behind it is very light, subtle purple. And it really helps some of those red, like the mauve and the purple in the flowers pop. I really like that one. Want to get it framed and put it up in my office. Only took me a couple days, so pretty quick stitch. I was off on some of the back stitching, but I ended up being able to fit it, so I just worked with it from where it was. Next is a new start. I knew when I finished 324 last month that I wanted to start something else that was very colorful like that, and I'd already picked out this pattern. It is called Rainbow Diagonal. It's by Emblem Designs on Etsy. I'm stitching this one on 25 count Silvery Moon Lugana with CXC threads just because I have a full set on a ring and it's easy to pull one strand out of there or a couple strands out of there for what I need for this, like it was with 324. And I'm stitching it 1/1 full cross. I did a total of 1,451 stitches in March for 5.4%. And here's where I'm at. So again, gorgeous colors, very, very colorful. I'm getting into like the teals and then the aquas and the blues and the purples, all of my favorite colors. So really excited to get down to that section. Okay, now I'm going to go through just my normal whips that you've seen before and are part of my rotation. First, I worked on an Enchanted Place. This is, the artist is Eder Jose Rosa, and it's charted by Stitches So Beautiful. I'm stitching this one on 25 count Easy Grid Lugana, 2/1 10 stitch. Here's where I was the last time I showed this. I participated in a stitch along in March that Valerie from Stitches So Beautiful had on her Facebook page. I think it's also on her Instagram, where she offers an exclusive pattern for free if you participate in just posting your progress each week on working on a Stitches So Beautiful pattern. And I really liked the exclusive pattern that was being offered in March, so I participated and I did put in an additional over 1,000 stitches, which was part of the criteria. And now I'm at a total of 6,255 stitches for 11.82%. And here's where I'm at. So still loving the pastels, but really wanted to get into something different. So wanted to do the outline of the house and just get a different point of anchoring so I could get some stuff around that if I wanted to stop working around the tree and in the sky. So still loving the pastels, perfect for spring. These colors are just gorgeous, so I'll continue working on this. Next, I worked on Black Vintage Sampler. This is from Owl Forest Embroidery. I'm stitching this one on 18 count Aida in a color I dyed myself. I didn't actually save the recipe for this color, but I ended up creating something that's very close to it that's in my shop now called Devoted Dobbin. It's a denim blue color. It's very close to this, just not exact. It's a slightly darker. I am stitching this one with Silks for You PR070, which is their black 2/1 full cross. Here's what I was the last time I showed this. In March, I put an additional 1,175 stitches. Now in total, I'm at 9,895 stitches for 42.33%. So super close to that halfway mark. And here's where I'm at now. So I like to call her Mary Poppins, the little Mary Poppins, the lady with the umbrella done and the lantern next to her and a little bit of the border done. And once I get that border done that's below this section, I'm into the next section and probably will be pretty close to 50%, even closer to 50%, if not over. Okay, next is Fruits of Plenty. This is my Modern Folk Embroidery. I'm stitching this one on 25 count Silvery Moon Lugana, 1/1 full cross with DMC. I think they're 930 and 3750. And here's where I was the last time I showed this. I didn't do a ton in March. I just added an additional 815 stitches. So now in total, I'm at 24,392 stitches for 51.46%. And here's where I'm at now. Still love this one. Just having a little more trouble again seeing on 25 count. So I didn't do a ton, but I did finish that squirrel that's underneath the tree and then the frame of what's below him. And I started on the house that's in that frame, but it's a lot of house. So I stopped. Okay. Next is Kingdom of Books. This is an Andriana pattern. It's a physical kit. And I did restart this recently on 20 count vintage country mocha, enjoying it so much more on the 20 count and on this particular fabric. Um, I am stitching this one with the kit threads 2/1 full cross. Here's where I was the last time I showed this. In March, I put in an additional 1,006 stitches. I'm not stitching the whole background, so I'm not entirely sure what the total stitches are for the whole pattern to know what the percentage is, but here's where I'm at now. So got more of that red book done, going back and doing some of the fill-in of the yellows and the browns in the blue book, and then coming back to some of the colors. I'm even thinking of moving on to the other book that I think is like purple, just to alternate between colors and some of those yellows, because like the whites and yellows are just a little boring to me. And the stitches to me seem a little softer. Maybe it's just the way I stitch. But changing it up has helped me be interested in still keeping that up. Okay, next is My Golden Path. The artist is Adrienne Borda and is charted by Unconventional Cross Stitch. I am stitching this one on 28 count Easy Guide Lugana with the called for DMC 2/110 stitch. Here's where I was the last time I showed this. I only worked on this for one day, and I put in an additional 699 stitches. Now in total, I'm at 14,919 stitches for 6.62%. And here's where I'm at now. The only thing I did was I wanted to change up the color. So I started on this kind of darker teal color that's kind of the middle, just above her eye. That darker teal in there. And that's 609 stitches in there of this color. Love this one still. Love this. Love Adrienne Borda's artwork. Considering going back and finishing the black just to do a color finish and actually see a color finish, but we'll see. Okay, next for Stitch Chain 2025, this is Pride and Prejudice. The artist is Lena Ova. I'm stitching this one without the border to save on some of the stitch count. It took over 40% out of the stitch count of this one, although it's beautiful, just a lot of stitching, and I knew I'd never finish it with that border on there. So I am stitching this one on 20 count Ernest Emma with Silks for You PR065, 2/1 full cross. Here's where I was the last time I showed this. In March, I did a ton. I did 3,506 stitches, and I'm now at 17,255 stitches for 79.98% of this portion that I'm stitching. And here's where I'm at now. Finish this section with the house. So gorgeous. Now I'm starting the border of the last section right below it, and then I will be done. So this is my closest to a finish. I only have a few thousand stitch, maybe not even a few. I think it's like 2,000 stitches to go, maybe three. So the fact that I did 3,000, 3,500 in March lets me know that I can definitely finish this in the next couple months if I focus on it. Not looking very good for April already. Okay, and last but not least is the Grand Library, my giant piece. This is, the artist is Amy Stewart. I'm doing the regular size max color version of this chart. It is charted by Heaven and Earth Designs. I'm stitching it on 18 count Easy Guide Lugana, 2/1 full cross, what they call for DMC. Oh, here's where I was the last time I showed this. I did stand up and show you the whole thing the last time I showed this. And I am color completing, so I'm doing the top 5 colors in the bottom 10, I think, or the top 6 colors in the bottom. I think it's 5 and 10. I have had, of the bottom 10, I think I've had 2 or 3 color completions, and I'm getting so close to completing all 15 of those colors. I only have a couple sections left to go. In March, I was cranking it on this one too. I did an additional 6,678 stitches, and now in total I'm at 230,487 stitches. That is a mouthful for 57.23%. Now I did fold it, so I hopefully don't have to stand up to show the whole thing, to just show you the section I was working on. And here's the bottom section I'm working my way across to do color completion of those colors. And that's where I'm at. Hopefully you can see that because I can't see what I'm showing you. So these 2 sections with like the door and this very bottom part is what I've been working on. Still have some to do in this is a 2-page section essentially. Still have some to do of, I think, the 2 top colors and then the bottom 10, or now I'm at like 7 bottom 7 colors um, in these 2 pages, and then I can move on to the next blank section. So that is the Grand Library. I'm cranking along on that one. I don't think my pace is going to continue for the rest of the year, but we'll see. I'm really enjoying doing the color completion and switching it up this way rather than completing 2 pages at a time and feeling overwhelmed by all the confetti. I'm hoping that doesn't like bite me back, as I get further along in this and end up with a whole lot of like confetti left or a whole lot of lower colors. I may have to change it up again after I get through these color completions, but we'll see. It's working for me now, so I'm going to go with it. So that was it for showing my WIFs. Next, I want to show you haul. I did have a couple of things that I ordered from Market. I ordered them from Abby at Top Knot Stitcher. And what I got is Americana White by October House Fiber Arts. And they have sorry for the glare. They also have Americana Blue, which I really loved. And these are huge. So I'm not really sure if I'm going to end up stitching it because it's just so big. And I forgot to check that before I ordered the pattern, but we'll see. Next I got Cross Stitch Cardio by Silver Creek Samplers. Love this one, it's so cute. And I plan to start it next month for part of Mania with all my new starts in Mania. If you want to start that one with me, I'm happy to do a stitch along. I also got Britlit by Cosford Rye Stitchery. It's the houses for Beatrix Potter, Charles Dickens, and John Keats. I really just wanted the Charles Dickens house because I love Charles Dickens and I love stitching houses. But I might do the other ones because they're really cute houses too. Okay, and then I also got the recipe book, the Happiness is Homemade recipe book. There's some super cute patterns in here, and then also some recipes for a lot of stuff. So this was actually cute. It's my first time buying it. I know they offer something every year, but there's some really cute exclusive patterns in here. So I was happy with that purchase. It did turn out good. I also purchased the Lola Crow Extraordinary Bird Stitch Along, which just started last week. And of course, I started it the day that the frame came out. I'm not even a big fan of birds, but this is just looking so gorgeous with the colors of the frame that I wanted to do it. So I did start on it and I have been cranking on that one the last week or so. So I'll show that one on my next video. And by my next video, there won't be a new release, but I'm hoping to have the frame done before the next release, which is, I think, May 7th or something, the first week of May. So we'll see. It's coming out gorgeous, though. If you are in that one, let me know. I'm excited to see all the progress of people posting on Facebook and all the different fabrics that people have chosen. It's amazing to me how creative people get, even when stitching the same thing. So they're all coming out gorgeous. Okay, so next, I'm going to do the giveaways. I have several things to give away, a couple of patterns of things that I've already finished, and then I also will be giving away a piece of fabric to celebrate my Flosstubiversary. So these are things I've already finished. If you're interested in entering for the patterns, they're physical copies, so I'll mail them out to you. You do need to be 18 or over because you're providing me with an address. I would prefer if you're a subscriber to my channel, and then just comment below with the keyword that I'm giving you. Be creative as you want, or you can just put the keyword, that's fine too. And then I will draw winners on my next video and announce it on my next video. You'll have to email me at thosemissingstitches@gmail.com and let me know you were the winner with your address, and I will send them out to you. So first is 324 by Works by ABC. I finished this one last month and I have the physical pattern. Happy to send this on to anyone that's interested in stitching this one. If you are interested in receiving this pattern, just comment below with 324 in the comment and I will pick a random winner for that one. Next is a pattern I finished last year, I think. It is Nevermore by the Prairie Schooler. And if you would like to be entered for the drawing for this one, use the word Nevermore, all as one word. Next are two patterns that I actually had posted as giveaways before, but nobody ever claimed them, so I'm putting them back up. This is Welcome Halloween by the Drawn Thread. If you're interested in that one, comment with the word welcome. And then Trick or Treat by the Drawn Thread. Nobody ever claimed either of these, so I'm happy to give them out to someone else. On this one, let's comment treat in the comments below. Then the piece de resistance. I will give away a piece of fabric from my shop. You can pick any color that's in the shop right now, any fabric size. I'll send you a fat quarter. Just email me at thosemissingstitches@gmail.com if I pick you as the winner, and let me know what it is you're interested in, the address to send it to you, and I will get it out to you. So if you're interested in picking a piece of fabric from my shop, let's comment below. I'd really like to hear again what people's favorite fabric is to stitch on. So comment the word fabric, but I'd also love to hear like my favorite fabric is, or I enjoy stitching on this fabric. Like what are your types of fabric that you enjoy stitching on? As far as count and like whether it's linen, Lugana, Aida, there's so many different things out there and so many different preferences. I love to hear what people like. And if you're watching me and you're not typically like stitching on Aida or Lugana like I do, or if you enjoy linens from my shop or something and you have a favorite color, just let me know, things that you're interested in. I'd love to hear that. Or even things that like, I'd love if you'd make a fabric color that's in this color, because I'm always experimenting and always up for trying something new. So use the word fabric and whatever it is that you're saying, but let me know a little bit about yourself or something that you're interested in or something that you would like to see in the future. I'd love to hear from you. So this is the end of my cross stitch section. Next, I'm going to talk about books. So if that is not your cup of tea, feel free to sign off at this point, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you. And if you are sticking around, let's talk books. So in March, I read a total of 9 books. First, I read How to End a Love Story by Yulian Kwang. This is an enemies to lover story. Um, the two characters actually go to high school together and have kind of a tragedy that happens in high school that makes the female character, Helen, hate the male character. But it's not just her, it's her entire family because the tragedy involves her sister. And as it's 10 or 12 years, something like it's more than a decade later, they end up working on Helen and the male character end up working on they're both writers and they're working on a TV show together, and it's a really big opportunity for Helen and she doesn't want to give this up. So she has to learn how to get along with him, and eventually, of course, it's a romance, so can she get along with it? Can she get over her hate enough to work with him for one? And on top of that, can she get past her trauma of the past? And even if she can she ever accept him as a friend or as a partner if her family doesn't? You know, her family may never get over it. So there's definitely some dynamics of challenging issues in this one. It was cute, but definitely focused a lot on the trauma that they both had. Next, I read Hello Stranger by Catherine Center. This was a really interesting read. I was even talking to my husband about it because it was like a fascinating subject for me. So, Sadie is the main character. She's a portrait artist that ends up discovering, after a minor accident, that she has some sort of brain bleed or something going on in her brain. And her dad is like some neurosurgeon or some really famous surgeon and really encourages her to get surgery to fix it because it can be really bad if you don't fix it. So she does have the surgery to fix it, but post surgery, a couple days post surgery, she ends up with this side effect of losing her. She ends up with facial blindness, so she can't recognize people's faces anymore. They're like blurry or distorted. There's nothing recognizable. Her brain can't connect the dots to say, oh, this is this person. She can't even see like facial features or make them out or distinguishable. Everything's disoriented. Noses are in the wrong place, eyes are in the wrong place. It's just there's nothing. It's very confusing to her and very, stressful and traumatic. So there's not only the challenge of like how do you live life on your day to day and go through living not recognizing anybody, but also this being a portrait artist is her livelihood and it's her job. So how do you still do that if your brain can't coordinate what it thinks faces look like and your hand that's trying to do the art of it is not jiving? So it is a romance, but it's really interesting premise of what we kind of recognize in other people, but also don't connect when some of the things vary. So she starts to learn to like recognize people's clothing or their hairstyles or their tone of voice and what a difference it makes when you're not relying on facial recognition and how when you make decisions and how that can kind of actually determine some of your biases that you have about people. So kind of fascinating on that one. um, I saw the ending coming, but they did a good job. I think they did a really good job of hiding it until closer to the end. So did like that one. It was an interesting premise, something I've never read about before. Next, I read The Fall Risk by Abby Jimenez. This was super, super short. It had to be just like a short story. I read it in probably an hour or two or less. It was a cute romance with the main characters being trapped in their apartments. They're neighbors, and then they're trapped in their apartments for a weekend because of a construction mishap that their stairway ended up being destroyed. So they have no way to get out of their apartments other than onto the landing that connects their two apartments. So they end up kind of hanging out on the landing because they can't go anywhere else and getting to know each other. It was a quick read, so not really super developed in any of the characters or any of the storylines, but it was a good, quick, like mute cute story. There's some background of why the female character lives there and she's hiding from a stalker, so a little dark in some of the things of why she's there. But again, don't go super detailed into it because it's so short. Really quick, you know, really, really quick read, so cute for a quick read and a cute romance. Next, I read Margot's Got Money Troubles by Rufi Thorpe. I liked this one, but I will say it's not for everyone. I had no issues with the premise or the topics, but some may consider it a little crude in some of the language. The premise is a very, very young lady. I think she's only 19. She gets pregnant in college and she decides to keep the baby. So at 19, I think 20 by the time she has the baby, she's trying to navigate how to support herself, how to support her new baby without the involvement of the father. And there was a point at which it was written into this in the novel about how that really hit. hard with me that I thought was very poignant about how society is set up, women in general, but especially single mothers, to fail. She gets fired from her job because she can't find reliable daycare and she can't afford it even if she could. But then unemployment, like she can't even afford to pay rent on unemployment. Or, it's basically how do you survive? Um, Even if you're working, you're expected to do all that, like you're expected to have daycare, but you're also expected to be home and take care of your baby. And just how do you do stuff like this alone? Women are essentially, another conundrum for women that were kind of placed in this position of no choice. So it's an interesting point, and I thought that was very well written. The part that may not work for some people is that she knows she's having money troubles, and in order to make money, she starts an OnlyFans page to see if she can make some money off of this. And if you know what OnlyFans is, um, you know that it can be explicit and even pornographic. It sometimes it she doesn't necessarily get into as much of that side of it, but there's a lot of philosophical and moral discussions at points in the book about what is considered pornographic and what is, um, like having some of this open dialogue about judgments of what can be explicit and what is like judgments of her and her morals based off of her just having this page. But to me, the fact that this was the subject and some of the discussions that they had about it did make it more purposeful and proving the point of what I think the premise of the book was. And I think it was super, super funny sometimes too. So I did enjoy this one, but again, just a warning that, the premise may not be for everyone. Next, I read This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. The premise is Lucy travels to Prince Edward Island for one summer where she's going to meet her best friend is from this island and she's going to meet her best friend there, but her friend missed her flight. So she ends up going there and goes into a restaurant and she meets a man and really clicks with him and they end up hooking up. And then she finds out later that this is her friend's brother who she's explicitly been warned against to not fall for him. So this is one of her friend's only rules of, being her friend. And so they decide they're not going to pursue any sort of relationship, never going to tell a friend. Everything's going to be, let's end it now. There's a dual narrative here of the present day and it's alternating with the past several years of how they've still either she's traveled back to the island with her friend or he's come to visit his sister and how they still kind of spark things and things build over the years but never quite build right. So I really like the ultimate catalyst of this story about really knowing timing may not be right and how important it is to be whole yourself before you can be good for anyone else and how it's kind of encouraged in the characters and their relationship and friendship with each other in order to do that, and how they build that um, was a good premise for this book. Next, I read Patron Saint of Liars by Anne Patchett. This was not what I expected. There's so many stories over the years of homes for unwed mothers during the early to mid like 20th century that are about that really the women were abused, the babies were stolen. It was just horrible, traumatic experience, or a lot of them died, or the babies died, or they were told they died, but they were given away for adoption. So I expected the premise of this one to be a similar home to that, but it really wasn't. This home was actually a respite for these women who were unwed mothers and they had their babies in the hospital. They had a choice of whether they wanted to keep them. They weren't, enslaved to this house or stuck in this house. They were allowed to go at any time. They could take their babies with them if they wanted to. Most of them didn't. Um, all of the girls come and go, but essentially the main character, who is Rose, is one of the girls that chooses to stay, and she continues to work in the kitchen as a cook. She chooses to keep her baby, um, and it's kind of interesting because she chooses to stay and continue in the kitchen even though this it's a Catholic run. So the sister that runs the place doesn't want her there. She just doesn't give her a choice. She just stays there and keeps cooking, and this is years and years and years, and this is kind of indicative of how her character is, that she just does what she wants when she wants to, no matter what anybody else thinks. Um, she does keep the baby, and she decides to raise her there, but she's very cold and distant and not taking to motherhood as her daughter grows up. Someone actually eventually does ask her, like, why did you even keep her if you're not interested in being a mother? I think there's really, really deep depression in Rose, but I also think I had this weird, like, love hate relationship with her. And sometimes she could be very generous and kind, especially to the sister that worked in the kitchen. And sometimes, most of the time, she was just utterly, like, completely selfish and cold. So by the end of the book, I was a little conflicted whether I felt any sort of sympathy for her or whether I just outright hated her. So it was an interesting conflict, but there's so many other characters that are fantastic, really interesting, especially some of the girls that come in and out of the house and kind of leave. I mean, this takes place over decades, so kind of leave their imprint on some of the characters for even if they were only there for a short time. And some of the characters that are around this and work there, and the daughter, and some of these other characters that are more permanent staples, really, really good characters in them. So interesting kind of conflict of hating Rose so much and being a main character, but then loving some of the other characters in spite of, her influence on them, I guess. Next, I read The Love We Found by Jill Santopolo. This is the sequel to The Light We Lost, which I read a couple years ago and I really liked. This one was good and a great way to kind of continue this Lucy story and how she navigates what we learned in the first book of her grief. And we learned at the very beginning of this book that, and her divorce, her marriage is now ended, so she's divorced and she's raising her kids post the first book. She ends up on this journey to honor the memory of her lost first love as the anniversary of his death approaches. And along the way, she's really challenged in her grief and whether she can heal from her traumas, not just her first love's death, but her divorce and basically losing two loves over a short period of time. So I like the book that was because it was about a much different stage in life and about second or even third chances, and whether even if you feel like you might, like, personally feel like you might not be deserving of another chance, or even if you feel like you are deserving of another chance, are you too afraid or traumatized from your past experience to even give it a chance if something does come forward? So I like that kind of premise of it. Next, I read Sandwich by Catherine Newman. I love this one. Very, very funny, very well written, really quirky with some of the characters. I think partly because the main character, Rocky, that this is just her nickname. She's the main character. She's closer to like or what I'm approaching in my stage of life. So it made it really relatable to me. And there's another thing that was relatable to me in there. She's approaching menopause. Her children are grown. There's lots of changes in life, and menopause is just making her really, really nasty. And then she hates herself for how nasty she is, especially to her husband. We have the present day Rocky. The family goes to this, I think it's the Cape, but they go to like an island vacation home every summer. So we have present day of the family going with the kids grown, and her going through this menopause and being bitter and everything. And then you get flashbacks every other chapter of past years that they've gone to this same vacation home, even before they had kids and then as the kids grow, and it's back and forth. It's not necessarily in any particular year order. It's more about the premise of the building of the story. And I really liked something I related to is part of the years where they're going through navigating fertility issues, which was absolutely so spot on in some of her struggles with that. And it was relatable for what I went through. I think it had like extra special meaning. And I even found myself the way it was being described by this writer going, yes, exactly, that's exactly how it feels, and some of the psychology that's written into this book. So they did a really good job of incorporating those feelings that I could relate to into this character, and I think that's why it hit a little more with me. But on top of that, it was really well written, really well done, great, great characters, especially the mother and daughter, who also have issues with anxiety and mental health, and they kind of help support each other. Really great conversations, really funny, but hold each other accountable too. really liked how they challenged each other and some of the things that even especially with like the progressive stuff, um, really like some of the perspective of what that added. Super funny at times too in the way that they talk to each other. And last but not least, I did a reread of Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. This is probably the 12th or 18th time I've read this. I don't even know at this point. I've read all of Jane Austen's novels at least 5 to 6 times, but specifically Mansfield Park and Pride and Prejudice, I'm sure I'm above 10 at this point. So, in honor of the 250th birthday of Jane Austen, I've decided to reread all of her collections this year. They never disappoint me. It's always a good read. It's always a nice, kind of breathtaking, like nice release of the breath going with a classic like that. I'm always discovering new things every time I read it. So some things I don't like to reread because it's just going over the same story. But these books, I seem to find something new every time I go through it. Something that maybe I didn't pick up on before, or even just something I remember, but it hits me a little different, or I interpret a little different. So they're always fun to reread these. I encourage you, if you haven't read it before, read her books, or even if you've read them before, they're worth a reread. Give them a try, especially for the anniversary. So that is it for my March reading. Thank you again for joining me if you made it this far. I hope to see everyone next time, and I hope you have a fabulous rest of your April. Thank you and happy stitching. Bye.